Today I would like to talk about a subject that many people, myself included, never really had on their radar, and that is hardware de-essers. I think it's safe to say now that in this day and age, everyone is just using de-esser plugins because you don't need a de-esser to create sound, you just want to get rid of unwanted frequencies. That's why you grab a plugin, you put it on your track, and that's it. But I think there is still a place and a time for hardware de-essers. And that's why I brought the SPL DeEsser Mk2 with me today. That just came out recently. For those of you who don't know what a de-esser is doing, it is actually a type of specialized compressor. You can think of it that way. A de-esser has a sidechain that is very, very narrow. So you can think of it as a compressor with a very narrow window, usually between 5 to 7 kilohertz. And that's because that's where sibilances are and where hiss is and all these noises that are very unpleasant to your ear. So the job of a de-esser is actually to get rid of those unwanted frequencies that poke through. So actually most of the time you have a de-esser that has a special threshold setting or amount of reduction, and then you work from there to get rid of those unwanted frequencies. And sometimes a de-esser is working with phase cancellation, or it's just a very basic compressor that is just ducking that signal. And because of the similarities between a de-esser and a compressor, what you will find is that many older compressors from the 70s, 80s and 90s also had a de-esser function. So for example, my BSS DPR 402 has also a de-esser function, but it's mainly a compressor. I think it's safe to say that the de-esser is the most straightforward hardware device that I had on my channel. In fact, you just have one knob and 3 switches. That's it really. So you have the S reduction, which determines the amount of de-essing. Then next to that you have the S reduction meter from 0 to -20 dB, and there you can see how much reduction is actually is happening. Then you have the on-off switch, so you can engage or disengage the de-esser. And then you have a male-female switch. And no, this won't make your voice male or female. What it's actually doing is, because males tend to have a lower pitch in their voice, their S's, their sibilances are also a little bit lower. So male means that the window is around 6K, and female means that the de-esser window is around 7K. So you can switch between 2 different sidechain windows or sidechain frequencies. I tend to use that a lot because sometimes on drums I like the female more because it's a little bit higher in pitch. And on my voice sometimes female also works better. So that's it really. The last option is the auto threshold, and that is a very sophisticated circuitry that tries to have the same amount of reduction overall. Why would you want to use that? Well, sometimes if you work with a singer that moves a lot in front of the mic, if you go back from the mic, you would actually have less de-essing, and if he would go closer to the mic, you would create more de-essing. So the auto option tries to compensate for that by having the same amount of reduction overall, and that is very, very clever. Try to use that a lot on different sources, not just on vocals as well. So that's it really. S reduction knob, then you can see how much reduction is actually taking place. You have an auto switch to get a more even de-essing. You have a male and female switch. You can think of it as 6K or 7K, and then you have the on and on switch. That's it really. And of course the other side is doing the same as well. And you have independent settings then for each channel. For example, if you put a stereo signal through that, and that's it really. The reason why I started to become interested in hardware de-essers again is because many people told me about the different sound of a de-esser. Mainly being that the hardware de-esser sounds way more natural than a plugin. People couldn't really explain why that is, but you soon realize once you listen closely to some of the de-essers that they always create these like interesting artifacts, which will not happen sometimes with a hardware de-esser. Many plugins create those interesting artifacts where it almost sounds like you have an MP3 sound and it's just not fast enough sometimes, or it just muffles the sound and it creates these really strange effects that I don't want. What I realized is that, especially on my voice, I'm very bad with hiss and S sounds. You can probably hear that. I'm one of those guys that would probably need 3 de-essers in a row in order to have a good sound. And what many people told me is that I should, especially on my vocal, try out a normal hardware de-esser because it will actually create a more natural sound compared to a plugin. And that's why I wanted always to try out a hardware de-esser for my voice. So let's listen to that. This is a test of the SPL DeEsser. 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 I think it's safe to say that these audio examples speak for themselves. It's a very natural kind of sound that doesn't annoy you. So pretty cool. But the SPL DeEsser Mk2 is in fact stereo. So I have 2 channels. So you might ask, why do I need 2 channels? Well, because there are jobs outside of the vocal world where you might want to have a de-esser, particularly on drums. I love to use de-essers on drums to get either a sort of kind of lo-fi effect whereby I reduce the treble a little bit and get it controlled, or if I have sounds that are very unpleasant and certain frequencies, overheads, cymbals, synth sounds as well. I should use definitely for that part a de-esser. And there are frequencies you want to duck or you want to cancel out. And it just not only is more pleasant to your ear, it will also give you sometimes more headroom, because high frequency content will in fact reduce your dynamic range if it's popping up all the time, and it can stress out your compressor. So if you look closely at some of the producers out there, what you will find is that they have some kind of de-harshness on their master bus for processing before they go into the compressor. And that is actually some kind of like sophisticated de-esser that is in the chain. In fact, if you look at some of the plugins that are out there, mastering plugins, they have a harshness control, for example. That is in fact nothing more than a de-esser, because it starts to get the harshness out of your mix. And how do you do that? Well, you have a compressor that is working in a specific window. So what I'm saying is, don't always think of a de-esser as just a vocal tool. It is actually a tool to shape your sound in such a way that you will get a more pleasant sound out of it, or in a way that you can actually create more dynamic range in your mix or in your recording process. All right, I hope this video was helpful. If you have any questions about de-essing or the SPL DeEsser Mk2 in particular, write them down in the comment section below and don't forget to subscribe. Thank you so much for watching.